Welcome, everybody. We are going to get started in half a second here. Welcome to today's webinar. We will get started in half a second. So, should have Bob Dunn and Jeff Smith joining us in half a second as well. And so, we shall go from there. Welcome.
Hello.
You beat Bob. We are live. We are live.
Yes, sir.
So, welcome, sir.
Let me see if I can change the name down here.
Change your name from me.
Yeah.
Yep, that sounds good. And we'll see if we can let Bob in here as well. I think he's hiding in the back room as well, and then we shall get started. Master Smith, if I can figure out how to do it, I'll share a couple of videos, and if not, we can tell people about some of this. But we had our meeting Tuesday, and what I was excited about is we had some people, some of our school owners who really kind of had a rough start to the year. One of them lost all of their staff. Another one was in a severe car accident and, was out for a while. They had made a tremendous comeback. Stephen down in Tampa, everybody thinks summer is slow. He had done, what was it, 72 or 77,000 this month?
I think in between there, I think it was 76 or something like that.
Okay. So let's say mid 70s, so we're accurate. And then Krista hit 92,000 in July, and then Jason hit, what was it, 109,000 and some change in July. And we have all this documented. I can show everybody the video if I can figure out how to do the video. But Matt Smith, tell everybody on the webinar here a little bit about how that happens. We've got, I don't know, I'm guessing at least 10 schools that are going to break 1 million this year. And if I have anything to do with it, we've got at least 5 that'll be 2 million or more next year.
Well, even more than 1 million, because more so than 1 million, because 84 is 1 million, and we have most of those doing over 100 now.
Yeah.
And that's just their average. I mean, they've hit big numbers. Christy even hit 235 last year was her record month last year.
235,000
in 1 month. And we know schools out there and probably some that are watching this video that don't do that in a year.
Yeah.
And she did it in 1 month.
Yeah.
But how do they do that? And people say, well, I've heard all these others. I've tried this. It didn't work. They say all this. Well, the way it works is the way our system is designed, the way that you put the program together, that all we're doing is kind of teaching people how to be a black belt in business. And the way we teach them how to be a black belt in business is the same way we teach them how to be a black belt in the school. We just started figuring, how did we develop, and your school and mine have developed a lot of national and world champions. How did we do that? What was the system? So we started trying to implement it in our business system. And what we found is that, first of all, you can't have a one-room schoolhouse. You need to have a beginner group, an intermediate group, an advanced group, kind of like you do in the school. Everybody doesn't come in and they train in a black belt class because they're in over their head. They get lost or frustrated. So with our system, they're able to get in and be in with the beginners, figure out the first things that are important. And that first thing that we focus them so heavy on in the first 30 to 60 to 90 days is to add 100 students to your school, to get 100 enrollments, because we found once they get their price point, instead of getting off that $100 tuition to grow a pair and get your tuition raised up where it'll be, then if you add 100 students, your gross is going to be up $25,000 to $30,000 a month. And that's how so many of our schools in the first 6 months have doubled, tripled, quadrupled their gross, because they figured out how to add that 100 students and keep them, and then keep adding students and controlling the dropout. See, if I have more people coming in, but as fast as they're coming in, they're going out the back door. I've talked to a lot of schools that they're at around 100 students, and they can't figure out why they can't grow.
Yeah.
And I
And
feel,
that, not to interrupt, but that you mentioned in there, and you were kind of alluding to not Tuesday's meeting, but Thursday's, today's Thursday, yesterday's meeting of our guys is, we had a new person, and in fact, I posted the video. You'll appreciate this, of Ben Brown from I think it's 18 months ago, where we allowed him into our member meeting, and I said, ask anybody anything you want. What's the one thing or another, and his question was, and he's a little gruff around the edges. He said, "Well, frankly, does this shit work? I don't believe it. I think you guys are full of are full of it." And of course, in that case, and then I posted that video, but we've also got the video of him about 6 months later, vacationing in Hawaii in his hammock. But he was doing about 16,000 a month. Um, uh, I just pulled the transcripts back out. 6 months later, he was doing 58,000 a month. Now he's doing in the high 70s to the low 80s every month. So. Um, but yesterday when we were talking, and this was with Debbie, and she was saying, "Well, I've tried everybody. Everybody's saying the same thing. It's all the same. I can get you a bunch of students and so forth." And she goes through this list of all those, and I not too charitably call it the bozo explosion, but this list of like everybody in the industry that she had worked with. But mostly what she was alluding to is, number one, agencies, many of whom are disguised as consultants, but really what they're doing is you're paying them either on a per lead, a per appointment, or just a flat fee in order for them to place your Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising, perhaps Google search advertising, pay-per-click advertising. But they listed a whole bunch of, these guys are doing SEO for us. These guys are doing, pay-per-click, all of whom, in her mind, created, no results. Now, I have to say it was suspect because they don't know where their traffic's coming from, right? So, it's a if you don't know your numbers, you don't know where your traffic's coming from. You don't know whether something did well or poorly. But the industry is kind of overrun right now with a whole bunch of different software providers, all promising they're going to automate your school and everything. You can basically go on the beach and and everything will run itself. Which there's a place for good marketing follow-up software, and of course there's a place for online banking and so forth, but that's not going to run your school. That's not going to fix your problems. And then what we find with these agencies is they're mostly one-trick ponies. Oftentimes, now she claimed they weren't even that. She claimed they signed up and nothing happened, but what I find is most of them, they're good for 30 to 90 days, and they get you a little bit of traffic, and then they've used all of their tricks, and then they're not good at refreshing and continuing to update. And I guess what happens is people don't know the difference between all of that noise, software agencies pretending to be consultants and so forth, and what we do. And that's where you were going there, Master Smith, is our system is first teach new people in the smaller schools. We're launching this new program. Historically, Bob, if somebody was doing less than about $250,000 a year, they really couldn't be part of what we were doing. Now we're launching a new program we call a Small School Accelerator, and our mission is to get them from wherever they're at, 5,000 a month, 7,500, 10,000 a month, get them into that $250,000 a year category, or 20,000 a month, and then move them into our higher levels. But the first thing we teach them is a whole bunch of things that they can do to market their school. And Master Smith, what you and I have had the conversation 20 times, if once, is, it's great that people want to get leads and traffic from social media and from Google. That should be a small fraction of your traffic, right? To steal from you, it should be a third of your leads are coming from online, meaning social media and search. A third are coming from internal referrals. I always modify that a little bit by saying if you're under 100 students, it's got to be community outreach. but a third of your students should be coming from community outreach. And this time of year, right now, is the time that we find people can generate, well, what was it? Last year or a year before, one of our clients did 850 appointments in 2 weeks. Um, this is a time of year where you can be out there and generate huge traffic with community outreach. What would you add to that? You wanted to go back and kind of summarize what you were already saying there.
Well, again, you hit on it that the conception that school owners have is so far off is because it's almost like saying I have a problem and I know there's a problem, and now I'm just going to sit back and say it's a problem that can't be solved. You know, I started this back, and you'll remember this is generally speaking for our junior schools, our worst month of the year was always December.
Mhm.
So I rather than just us rely and everybody say, well, we know this is going to be a bad month, you know, there's holidays and people don't come in and blah, blah, blah. I put together a plan that how we could turn, you know, what do we need to do to turn that from the worst month of the year to the best month of the year? And that's what we did. And I put a plan together and a system of doing things that we hadn't done the rest of the year. And that's what we've done with summer, because everybody that we talk to tells us the same thing. Oh, summers are the slowest months because everybody goes on vacation and nobody wants to start anything. It was like one excuse after the other. I call it the loser's limp. You know, it's like they know they've got a problem, but rather than figure out what they need to do to fix it, they're going to just give up and then just say, oh well, everybody has a bad, you know, it's the same, it's not just me. See, they want to justify why they're screwing up. So the best way to do that is when you talk to your broke friends who are also not doing anything, then it reiterates what your belief is. And that's where our group comes in, is now you're surrounded by schools that are successful, that are not making excuses, but putting things into action. And now we have a group. And as I said, as I was saying before, is we learned a system that you cannot teach any school owner to be $1 million school by teaching them one thing. No more than you can teach somebody how to be a black belt by doing one thing. There's a whole thing, a system that you have to do forms and fighting and breaking and weapons and or whatever your system calls for. It's not just one thing. So that's where what you were talking about, the bozo explosion. There was a lot of people that were teaching one things. They call them a one-trick pony. But now there were other things that broke down. We have taken everything from A to Z, that all you have to do are these things. Now that I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you can just sit back and flip a switch and this is going to happen, but it's no different than becoming a black belt. If you
to steal a phrase, by the way, the phrase that I didn't invent it, but I borrowed it, is the system works if you work the system.
yeah,
You know, that's exactly right.
What happens? We've got these people that are students that cannot be a black belt in our school. Why? Not because we're not teaching them, because they're not doing what you say. But then you've got all these that aren't doing what you say. So that's the same thing with our group. If you become part of our group and you just sit back on your hands and you watch everybody else be successful, that's not going to make you successful. What you have to do is listen in the class, in a basic class. You know, the way you learn is the synergy of the class. It's not just a private lesson. There's very few or no black belts that became a good black belt with just private lessons. They had a group class, and in those beginners, there were some students that were better than them, and they learned what to do from those. There were students that weren't as good as them. Well, they learned what not to do. But they also had an instructor, a mentor, who was correcting their mistakes, repeating, not giving up. If they didn't correct it, they would correct it again until it became a habit. And that's how we have been so successful in making so many schools $1 million schools plus, because it used to be $1 million was our goal, but now we had somebody making $1 million. that we went to 100. Well, now everybody, we had somebody making 100, we went to 150. So now that's where we're on that quest this year to have our first $2 million school. And we have at least a half a dozen schools that are right on the cusp of being able to do that, just by implementing all of our different systems that teach you everything from A to Z, not one piece. There's no question that any of our members can ask us, and I don't care how, you know, how, just like one of you were talking about Ben Brown, no matter how they think in their mind that nothing's going to work and this is this bullshit, and then when they hear how everybody did it, then they go, well, and you know what the biggest crutch was with new members? We hear it and we know every time, and all the other members laugh now, is they'll say two things that hit me really hard. One is they say, well, we're doing everything you told us to, and then we start have them talking about what they're doing, and it's nothing like we told them to. And then one of the other members, you know, a new member will say, well, I tried that and it didn't work.
Didn't work, yeah.
Well, the way you did it, it didn't work. And that's when they'll say, well, I did it just like you said. And they say, well, tell us what you did. And then there's at least a half a dozen other members that start laughing and they go, you didn't, I never heard that before.
And that's
We're ready to
important.
get
for that
blown away
other,
out here.
the
I
other,
turned my camera around so it was better lighting, but you guys kept accusing me of being on a green screen. I'm just sitting out here on the deck, but the wind is coming up, so I may have to put a baseball cap on or something. You were gonna say, Bob?
yeah, and what Master Smith is correct is, and most of them that I talk to, they don't know how to do some of that additional marketing. And if they had done it, they'd done it incorrectly, so they never went back and tried it again. So
Yeah.
I think what we bring to the table and what you guys are teaching our guys is very important, because that's where, you know, the rubber meets the road. I mean, because most of these companies out there are teaching them online marketing, and that's it.
Well, they're not teaching them online marketing; they're doing
Oh,
agency work for them. So
there you go.
they're
They're
you
doing
know,
it for them.
Yeah.
And then they complain when it doesn't work.
But then that's all they're doing, you know.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind when it doesn't work is all the agencies complain to us because, you know, once they hand it off to the client screws it up, and all of their clients complain to us because they were getting nothing but flaky leads. And and the reality is, you know, we've got to teach people how to convert from online leads to enrollments, the same as offline leads to enrollments. But, you know, sitting in your school and expecting somebody else to feed you all of your students doesn't work. It's a fool's errand. That's the abdicate rather than delegate. You can delegate pieces of your marketing to an agency and so forth. Heck, I did it, you know, Matt Smith Jr. did it in the 70s. I did it in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, delegating to a buying agent for TV ads and so forth. But I always paid attention to every step of the way, knew what the process was, and was on top of it. And it was a portion of our traffic. It wasn't I wasn't relying on that to be all of our traffic. Let's step back here, and I want to, for everybody who's on the meeting, we've got a couple people on the meeting, and people kind of popping in and out. And Bob, I'm sure you did too. I had a few people who sent me some questions ahead of time saying that, you know, they weren't going to be able to be here live, but they'd certainly like to ask some questions. What are some of the most common questions that you've had, or questions that people sent you ahead of time from typically smaller schools?
Well, for example, I spoke with somebody yesterday, and he wanted to learn how to do more marketing in live event situations and how to actually book appointments. That was unheard of. Most people go out there and they just hand out flyers, or maybe they'll capture some information, you know, some leads, and then go back to the school and call them, you know, and as we know, that's not very effective. So that was a key question, that, you know, how to do.
So specifically, how to do a live event, in-person
Correct.
type of event. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, as always, you know, they believe that the conversions are great and their retention is fantastic, but they just need to get more qualified leads.
Yeah.
And
Well, let's go through that mythology, Bob. Is
Mhm.
almost everybody we talk to says, my students love me, I keep them forever, I just need better marketing so the school will do better. And then when we look under the covers, they're usually losing like 7%, 8% a month. And what we know is we're trying to get it down to 2% a month. So if you had 300 active students, you only lose 6 people a month, and you only need 6 people to stay even, right? So, those are the two numbers are the same. But what our criteria for is you're a good instructor is number one, what's your monthly dropout rate? If it's down under 2%, maybe 1 to 2% or even less, then you're doing a great job keeping people. And if it's over that, maybe you're a B, maybe you're a C, maybe you're an F, but you're not doing a great job doing that. I know Matt Smith, a lot of the ones you talk to, you keep telling me they start the year with 70 students, they enroll 70 students over the year, they end the year with 70 students, and talk about how great an instructor they are. They start the year with 150, they enroll 100 people, and they end with 150, or they enroll 150. And that's not what we're trying to do. We don't want to be a hamster on a wheel. We're really making sure that each student financially has, strong lifetime value, but developmentally is going to be with us long enough to develop permanent life skills, permanent lifetime benefit, and really get the most out of the program overall. So that's one thing. The question you were bringing up, Bob, was a live event marketing, and let's go through that. One of the biggest ways to really fill up your school for back to school. I mean, and you can, if you started with online, what we know is things like Facebook and Instagram are more responsive when people are in the mode of thinking about starting a new activity, less responsive when they're not. So maybe it's less responsive in July, but more responsive the minute school goes back in session for the kids market, for instance. Same thing with Google is if you hit, say, December, Matt Smith, you mentioned December, and by the way, the one idea you had probably brought me about $50 million over the years. And December was always not only best month of the year, but it was the best quarter of the year. Basically, I would do more in December than any other quarter. And of course, I would do, our second best month of the year would be November for the same reason. And we had years where, wherever we were halfway through the year, we would double that again the last 2 months. Um, but uh, but with summer, what you find is kind of the online stuff that you're relying on oftentimes kind of tanks late July, late June through mid-August. And if that's all you have, then you're natural to think the summer is slow. But what we know is internal referral events, especially if you have a pretty good student body, the kids are looking for things to do with their friends. They're looking for some fun thing. The adults, the same thing. You can have all kinds of fun events, fun activities at the school. You can go have classes at the park. You can have ninja nights, buddy days, movie nights. You can have I don't know. You're better at this stuff than I am, Matt Smith. But you can have all kinds of special events that students bring their friends, and all of a sudden you're thriving with referrals. You can have pizza parties, all kinds of things you can do. But then the other thing is, there's no better time than summer for being out at the movie theaters. If you were out at the movie theater for Fantastic Four, for Superman, for Karate Kid did okay. But if you were at the movie theaters for Karate Kid, you would have been great because you had what were the two movies that the two kids movies that surrounded it? You had Lilo and Stitch,
Yep.
and then the I don't know, whatever the other one was. But there was plenty of traffic there. The other thing that there's plenty of traffic. If you were in the U.S., there was big July 4th events all over the place. I talk to people and they say, well, I don't know what how to find a live event. I'm here in Evergreen, Colorado, and every time I drive down into town, there's banners everywhere. There was an arts festival, there was some other thing, there was the rodeo. I could go on and on and on. Every weekend there's something that I could have a booth in. Krista, who you mentioned before, you did the mid-90s in July. She does lots of farmers markets and other things like that with a live booth. And Bob, what you're saying is right. friends of mine, I kind of lump them sometimes into the bozo explosion, but friends of mine who, do consulting, they've had the same problem. Is I'll tell them, about movie theater or a live event, and they'll say, well, we couldn't get anything out of that. That didn't work. But then when I walk through it, they did nothing like what we're training them to do. Right? Is
Right.
what we know is everybody who comes by the booth, you should capture their name, address, and phone number. We have the scripting, the methodology, everything to do that. But 90%, perhaps even 100%, worst case 75%, should make an appointment on the spot, right? So if I capture 100 leads, I'm going to get 90 appointments. Of those, worst case, I'm going to have half, best case, probably 70% of them show up at the school. But there's processes then, and again, some of it can be automated. Some of it is sequential autoresponder, text, email, voicemail, stuff like that. Some of it can't be automated, but there's sequences to help to make sure they show up, that they're well educated about the program, enthusiastic about the program when they show up. So we teach those processes. But then the biggest opportunity, obviously you have Labor Day weekend and Labor Day events. That's an opportunity, but you have back to school. And so around the US, I know Canada, it's a little bit later, and Australia, New Zealand are upside down. They're in a completely different category here. But in the US, a lot of them are like next week or the following week, they're going to be doing back to school days, meet the teacher days, orientation days, whatever they want to call it. That particular thing, last time with one of the mile high schools, we made 85 appointments in 2 hours. I didn't do any of them. I was just watching to see how they were doing it. 85 appointments in 2 hours. That turned into over 50 intros. So that's just a home run, slam dunk. It's only once a year, but it's a slam dunk home run where you could be out in 5 or 10 or 15 different elementary, middle, or high schools and just knock it out of the park. Then you have schools going back in session, and of course, if you're in the kids market, you could be out there with a PE teacher for the day. That idea got kind of bastardized with what people started calling school talks. But the school talks saying it's not that it didn't work; it just worked so poorly that people would get frustrated and not do it. But the PE teacher for the day, the school talk left out the two key ingredients. One was if the elementary school is 500 kids, I'm sending an instructor out who's teaching 500 kids, not going into Mrs. Jones' second grade class and teaching 25. Number two, ahead of time, we were getting name, address, phone number, all the contact information, and then being able to proactively follow up with them. So made all the difference in the world. But right now for back to school, there's so many opportunities. And I'll tell you, the third one is your existing database of leads. And it doesn't matter whether you have a stack of hundreds of forms that people have filled out that have been in for an intro and didn't enroll, or printouts of emails of people who opted into your website, or if you have a substantive CRM, or maybe you have them in an Excel spreadsheet. It really doesn't matter where it's at. Be nice if you're a little more organized, but what you have right now is you have a beautiful opportunity to go back to people from 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, because especially in the kids market, but also with the adult market, they're looking for something to do. So now's the time to use direct mail, live outbound calls, text messages, emails, ringless voicemail, to be getting them back in. It could be the absolute busiest time of the year. It can be late August and September, but you got to pull the trigger and all that stuff. What other questions have you come across recently, Bob?
I don't know if it's a question, but I think it's worth identifying. So, I mean, many of the schools that I talk to, obviously, they believe they're charging as much as they can in their area, which is fine. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But the biggest challenge I know, I don't want to say a challenge. One of the biggest things I find them identifying their school with is more of, and notice I said school, but they're basically looking at it as a gym, right? And they're valuing their program on just primarily kicks and punches, and that's it. All right. And when I have the conversation and kind of open their eyes that it's an education, and what you're doing is an education, it's not only going to expand the quality of a black belt, but also their minds and how they can actually, it's really kind of an eye opener for a lot of the small schools that I chat with. So I don't know if you want to touch on that, but that's a common topic that I really feel that a lot of the school owners that I talk with, the small ones, kind of devalue what they really have in place and what they're bringing to the community.
Well, and oftentimes they need to improve the deliverable that they have as well, to be
The
fair.
message, the
Yeah,
message.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the wind went away. I can get rid of the hat. But well, let's go back to what you were saying, Bob, is that when you look at what the results of a school are, your enrollment flow is greatly dependent upon how many leads you're generating, right? You got to go generate a bunch of leads, and not all of them are of the same quality, but it can be, Facebook, Instagram, Google, but it can also be live events. It can be in movie theaters. It could be at the elementary school, which is my favorite. It can be at middle schools or high schools. It can be all of that kind of stuff, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and so forth. And it can be all kinds of things that you're doing internal into your school to give your students an opportunity to bring their friends and bring their associates into the school as referrals. But that's only part of it. And what we keep seeing is we keep seeing school owners trying to solve it with an agency. And those agencies are only able to do a sliver of what you're trying to do. They're only able to do, place online ads, or maybe they have some trick software and maybe even a boiler room, and they can follow up and make appointments. But what we find is even if they make an appointment, you don't follow up yourself. If you don't add direct mail, if you don't add a person on your staff reaching out to them and so forth, you still get a high no-show rate. But the next thing is we already talked about retention, but we got to go conversion, get a really tight conversion rate from lead to appointment to enrollment, and then be really good on retention. But then the other thing is, what's the value of a student? And as you said, Bob, I've talked to school owners in Malibu and in the financial district of New York who said, "Oh, my students would never pay that." And I've talked to school owners in Mankato, Minnesota, and Dodge City, Kansas, and Middleburg, Florida, and you can go through the list, who thought, "Well, our people are too broke to be able to pay that." And in all cases, they were wrong. Is if you really build the value of what you're doing, and build the value of all the pieces in place. And by the way, Master Smith, this is nothing. This is nothing new. I mean, Junior Institute was charging double what anybody else in town was charging in the 70s, and I did an inflation adjuster on that recently, and it was higher than what we should be charging now. Adjusted for inflation is actually higher than any of our guys are charging right now. What I was charging, when I opened the schools, is actually less than our top guys are charging right now. We haven't kept up with inflation, much less it exceeded it. So people get the weirdest ideas about that overall. Good. Any questions? I'll point out. We'll pause here, and there's a Q&A or a chat here. What do we have on the webinar here? It's a little
chat.
Oh, a chat. Okay. Thought we had a
Yeah.
Q&A. Oh well.
There's
Well, we have a chat.
Q&A there too.
Yeah.
There you
Okay, either way, if you have any questions at all, feel free to put it in. And if you would like to jump into the conversation, Bob can pull you into the conversation. You're welcome to do that. In the meantime, Bob, I want to make sure we don't miss any questions that we had ahead of time with people who aren't going to be able to be here live.
Yes, sir. And I also put I pulled my name, but I put in your new program link that you're kicking off right there underneath in my box. So if you guys see it, 6weekstoday.com, please visit that. And in my phone number's there. Feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to answer any and all questions. And
Yeah,
so-
and to explain that, I should have been more prepared to share my screen with some of this stuff. That is specifically designed for school owners under 100 students and or under 10,000 a month. And it's a completely new thing that we're doing to help them rapidly grow their school. If you're over that level, and we're going to have people who are quite a bit over that level, is give Bob a call directly, and we'll schedule a time for you to chat with Master Smith here and give you a chance to talk to me, and we'll give you a better idea and overview of what it is we do. Otherwise, here is Bob, if I can figure out how to share this in the meeting here. Here we go. Here's just a little bit of an overview of kind of what our program looks like. So that small school accelerator is more or less for schools under 7,500 or 10,000 a month. And we have what we call the apprentice program, which is 7,500 to 15,000 a month. And then our normal higher level members are up in these other categories. But that 6 weeks today is specifically for the smaller school. If you're over that or quite a bit over that, give Bob a call directly, and we'll set a time to see if it's a good fit overall. But the questions we get oftentimes are, well, how can I do this in my area? I have too much competition. Every street corner there's a martial arts school, and Matt Smith, you were laughing about it a minute ago, but Jason Purcell, that's a great example. First time I talked to him, he was doing 7,500 a month. He was in a little shopping center that was hard to find, and by shopping center I mean it's like, what, 5 stores on the first floor and 5 on the top floor. But he had a martial arts school. I think it was a Aikido school at the time. Then it became a BJJ school, and a CrossFit and a martial arts school, both exactly underneath him. You had to park in front of their space and go up a staircase to get to his school. So literally, you had to walk by them in order to get to him. And when I talked to him first, he was charging $75 a month. They were charging $65 a month, and he didn't think it was possible to raise his prices, to get his prices in line in any way, shape, or form because of the competition. This wasn't competition across the street. Like I said, literally they were complaining about the noise from people jumping around in Jason's school because they shared a floor and a ceiling with each other. And nowadays he's charging about $400 a month, and the guy who was underneath him at the time is out of business. The landlord stupidly has since rented to 2 other martial arts schools, both of whom have gone out of business. There may be something still operating there. You've been there more recently than I have.
It's empty now, but
Yeah.
there was 3 different ones. 2 were martial arts, and one was a fitness kind of I don't know, yoga, Pilates, or something. But
Yeah.
and the prices they were charging were a third or less than Jason was charging, and but it's not what you charge, it's what you're worth. So people come in, and that's the advantage of getting them into your school, is once they get in and they see the value. That's why we don't talk price over the phone, because they don't know what they're paying for. And when they come into the school, they're going to see the difference. And I know you've done it many times, Master Olivers, when somebody said, well, they're charging, how can you charge that much? This is a future student who says they're charging less than that down the street because I called and talked to them. And then you said to them, well, I guess they know what they're worth. Maybe you should go try one of their classes and see. And then more than half the time they would go there and then come back and say, okay, now I know why you're charging more. You're worth more. That really wasn't where we want to be.
Well, and to be fair on that, and my actual statement was, I know that what we're providing is worth way more than we're charging. The value is very high. I don't know why they think that's the value of what their program is. You're welcome to ask. But the reality is, I've always guesstimated as 95.5, and I think it's overestimating how many students will ever look at, compare, talk to, or evaluate any other school. Over the years, we were probably more like 3%. And part of it is a marketing issue, obviously. If you're just trying to get clicks on Google, and that's the only source, that's kind of like what it used to be, the Yellow Pages, is that's where they find all the other schools. But if you're doing what we teach, is marketing in a vacuum, getting out to people before they're out shopping and get to them right away, you're not going to have that problem with anybody trying to price shop. so very rare. I mean, I remember 2 or 3 stories out of 35,000 students of somebody price shopping. And all the stories end with they ended up paying what we wanted them to pay anyway. The other thing we get is, my area is too small. I'm in this little community of 5,000 or 7,000 or 10,000 people, or the people in my area are too broke. And it certainly is possible to be surrounded with broke people and to fish in the wrong pond, end up being, bringing nothing but broke people into school. But in almost all cases, some of our bigger success stories have been in smaller or mid-sized areas. We were using the story of Jason, and he's in Seattle. That's certainly not a small area, but we have Colby Winkler in Mankato, Minnesota. Jan was in we're Middleburg,
Middleborough,
Florida.
yeah.
Median income I think was 42,000 or 45,000 median household income last time we looked. So we've had
Yeah.
lots of
Tim
schools.
Harrison in Joliet, Illinois.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
haven't been
So
out to Stevens School, but I know Luke's area is pretty, it used to be very rural. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we've had lots and lots of schools that have done 50, 70, 80, $100,000 who are in smaller areas, who are in areas where it's not a very high average median household income. So that's the other thing I get a lot is my area is too small. I have too much competition. Everybody's charging.
What it is, Master Oliver, is that they all have their excuses of why they can't do whatever they need to do. And as funny as it sounds, I remember several occasions where we expected in the small towns to try to use that, but we've had it in the big cities where they would be as bold as to say, well, you don't understand, everything is so expensive in our area that there's no way they can afford to pay that.
That's my Ernie Reyes story. Ernie and Tony. I was working with their crew. Now the wind is coming up again. I was working with their crew there, and we were right outside of San Jose. And I was looking at the stats board. We had, I don't know what they had at the time, 12 schools or so forth. But we're looking at the stats board, and I turned over to, I think it was Tony, not Ernie. And I turned to Tony. I said, how is it that you've got schools all through Silicon Valley, and you're charging half of what I'm charging in Denver, Colorado? And that was his excuse. He said, well, you don't understand. The cost of living is so expensive here that people can't afford it. I said, no, 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 you don't understand basic economics. The reason why real estate is high in Silicon Valley is people are making a ton of money. It's always supply and demand. People are making a ton of money and they're bidding up the price. That's why real estate is high. You're surrounded with people who, on the low end are making six-figure incomes, and all of a sudden you think that they can't afford, anything more than whatever they were charging at the time. But it was the strangest thing. We had that one time we had somebody in Malibu, California say the same thing. The home of all the movie stars, and beachfront property. Of course, now a lot of it's burned down. So maybe they're right now. But we had the same thing, a school in the financial district, saying the same thing. They're right over by Little Italy. So you get people for whatever reason. The quote I heard, I didn't come up with this, but I forget whose quote it was, but they said most people would rather have a good excuse than good results. And the good excuse, absolves their ego dilemma of why they had bad results at any given time. Bob, what were some of the other questions that you've come up with here?
well, I am I guess the biggest challenge is that most of the small schools I chat with, they just don't know. They don't know what is capable of being done, how to actually make something work, how to get the conversions up front. The commonality is maybe some Facebook, social media ads, and obviously, and then word of mouth, right? Word of mouth is one of the big popular ones. And that kind of falls in line with why their close rates are so good and why they feel like if they could just get them in the door, they would be able to have a ton of more students because everybody that comes through the door, they close. But we're talking about maybe 5 students a month at the high end that are coming through the door that they're closing, but those came in through word of mouth. So I mean, that's almost a laydown, type of an enrollment. But I think what we bring to the table, and I think it'd be fair maybe if we spent the last 15 minutes on what you're offering and how we can really help these school owners that watch this video. I mean, to take advantage of the new program that you have, it's a no-brainer. I mean, especially to get started and all the tools and the resources that they're going to have available. Plus, they'll have you, Master Smith, and we'll be live on the meetings every Wednesday, talking, interacting, not in this type of a forum. We'll actually all be in a panelist. So you can ask any and all.
Fully interactive. This
And
webinar
Mr.
format makes it difficult to do.
One thing that I think we really need to make it clear is that people think that it's a flip switch to be a $1 million school, and there are things that you have to do. But if you want to be a black belt, I mean, what student is going to come to you and then want to be a black belt in your school and then not come to class on a weekly basis? You see, we have these weekly meetings for all of these members so they can work with their group of peers. They're actually getting a degree in business from us. They're getting a degree in martial arts business, how to be a black belt in business, how to be $1 million school by not, oh, we taught you in one lesson, no more than we could teach you how to be a black belt in one lesson. What we teach you are these systems that you now get to implement and learn from, and then we take you to the next step, just like you did in earning your black belt. So don't think this is a one lesson deal. This is something that you're training weekly with your peers, that you're hearing what's working now, what's working this month, what worked this week for everybody. So you can then do the same things the same way. And that learning from each other, that is the real synergy. That's what helps these schools because a lot of them don't know how to implement the knowledge that they've gotten from different sources. Here, they're in a weekly training to ask questions of what happened and why it didn't work or why it did work. And that type of learning, we copied exactly from how to be a black belt in martial arts. You didn't go to martial arts and go for a few weeks and then not have to go again. You were training on a weekly basis and you got better and better. And you learned from your mistakes how to get better. Your instructor corrected you. You asked questions. So that's what our group is. It's really, an opportunity, because you can't go to college and get a degree in being a martial arts businessman, because even having a business degree doesn't really teach you how to run a martial arts school. What we're teaching you.
Well, but by the way, having a
everything you
business degree
need.
doesn't teach you how to run a business either. That's you don't find people running successful entrepreneurial business from the stuff they learned in an MBA course.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And more importantly,
So
I mean,
having one of those myself.
Yeah, it gives you the foundation, but it doesn't teach you the exact verbatim. And then you've got other people that are doing it and making the same mistakes or not making the mistakes you're making, and you learn from them.
I might argue for most people it does the exact opposite. Gives them the exact wrong mindset to successfully run an entrepreneurial business. Might be good if they're getting hired in the middle of some big they're hired in the middle of GM might be good, but otherwise, and again that's from having done the labor, done the labor pains of doing it. Let's Bob, I want to get to what you're talking about, but I want to give everybody some real actionable steps right now. Is your actionable steps are know your numbers, and Matt Smith, this is your key component here. But you got to know at every step, whether marketing, retention, class attendance, renewal prep, renewals, graduation rate to gold belt, graduation rate to black belt. This is again, you're a baseball fan. I'm not, but that great book Moneyball was or movie that was a Brad Pitt movie. Is it really encapsulated how they know every number, and they were figuring out exactly what the right player was and who they were wanted to recruit and so forth. In your martial arts school, most people don't know their numbers very well, or really at all. You've got to know from this source how many, how many people showed up the website, what was the opt-in rate, what was the appointment rate from the opt-in, what was the well, once I made an appointment, what was the show rate of the people who showed, what was the from intro to second intro, what was the percentage from second intro to enrollment, what was the percentage, what was the percentage that got to the first progress update, renewal conference, renewal, how many students have been inactive for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, what's my total active, what's my monthly dropout rate, what's my percent graduation rate. And I'm just getting started, but you got to know all of those numbers, especially from the standpoint of the enrollments. We're always delving deep into each of those numbers to pay attention to that. And then from the standpoint of renewals, making sure we're getting the percentages where it needs to be. The third is the student value. You got to get your student value up to a high level. You're not going to run a
And
very
most
high.
schools don't even know how to calculate a student value.
Yeah. And by the way, Matt Smith, going back to what you were saying, the industry is kind of overrun with people claiming to do $1 million schools. But it's when we're talking about these big schools, we're not talking about 10,000 square feet in a warehouse with 40 employees teaching 20 different things. What we're talking about is 2,400, 2,700, 3,200 square feet, 250 to 300 active students, average student value 350 to 500. So 300 students at 400 student value is $120,000 a month school with 2 full-time employees. All they need is 15 or so enrollments a month to stay even or even fewer. So if you have 300 students and they're at 2%, they would only need 6 students to stay even each month. If they're at 3%, they'd need 9 students a month. But it's very sustainable. And the other thing I see, and some of my good friends are running schools like this. The top line number looks really good. They have a bunch of students, but they're not making net profit. Our top schools are doing 50%, 60% to the bottom line. So when we're talking about $1 million school with 2,700 square feet with, say, 320 students, that's a school that's netting 600. We have one school that I know of is on track for $1 million net this year in 2,700 square feet, running a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program. So
And doesn't have an after-school program.
no, none of these are daycare.
Right.
We've worked with people who do transport after school care and daycare. One of the top ones in the country. They're doing 7 million a year. I helped develop them for many years. He's since retired, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about martial arts students who come twice a week or 3 times a week, a normal program. And we're talking about very, very capable instruction too. We're talking about getting better and better and better at producing high quality students who have strong follow through to black belt and beyond and are doing a really good job. Bob, what you're talking about is this new small school accelerator program. And Matt Smith, as of today, we don't have the new website up. That's exactly how new this program is. We haven't put together all
I'm
of the back
excited
end
about it.
pieces.
I mean, I think this is going to be a big game changer for a lot of these small schools that we chat with. We really never, we didn't focus on.
Well, frankly, 85% of the people who raised their hand and wanted help, we ignored, and
Yeah.
10 or 15% we paid attention to. That's the reality. But this is specifically for 7,500 to 10,000 or under monthly revenue, 100 students or fewer. So if you're 5,000 a month, you. If you're 40,000 a month and 200 students, the wrong thing. We want to talk to you because we can turn you into $1 million school quickly. That's where you need to give Bob a call, 720-256-0208, and give him a call. But if you're in the lower category, we do have a special offer. It's Bob, I think it just still says $97.
Yeah, and
But
it's up to, yeah, it's 97. And then if you want to continue after the 30 days.
$497 a month, yeah.
Right.
Um, but as soon as the website's up, that's changing too. We're not going to do the 97, um, but if you go to 6 weeks today, you can register for that 30-day test drive. No obligation. We'll plug you into our live meetings. They're every Wednesday. If you can't make it to one live, it is recorded. You'll get the summary, the transcripts, the takeaways, handouts, whatever it might be. You'll also get our discussion forum where you get to interact with all of the other schools that we work with. Again, some of them are like you and they're starting out from scratch. Many of them have been around a year and they're doing quadruple or 4 to 5 times what you're doing, and others are clearly in the they did 150,000 this month, or they did 120 or 109 or whatever it might be. But you'll get with all of them what they're doing right now, their feedback on what it is you're looking to do, all of those pieces. Plus, Bob, we have in fact, we could share that. I can share that. We have those programs that are also the 6 weeks to fill your school. We have that complete course. It's in the program, and then we have the 2 referral programs. Remind me what they're called. Okay, Bob.
The Ultimate Referral Machine and the Ambassador Program.
There you go. There you go. That's what I was looking for. And the other thing we have is that complete fill your school program. Now, Bob, when we first started that, it's the full live recordings of the $5,000 marketing boot camp. And what we did originally is we sold it for about half of what it was to attend live. So we were selling it for $24.97. Now, actually, in digital form rather than physical form, we're giving it away as part of this program. So as I mentioned, we have, and I forgot the A to Z grassroots marketing. The A to Z grassroots marketing, the 6 week to fill your school, is really designed for people who do not have a big budget to spend on advertising. They can't go do 10,000 pieces of direct mail or anything, but it gives you all the grassroots things that you can do that are very inexpensive, either free or inexpensive, that are very, very powerful to go out and fill your school. And again, these two, the Ambassador program and the Ultimate Referral Machine, are for referrals. And I mentioned below 100 students, referrals are kind of hard, but this Ultimate Referral Machine does work just great for smaller schools as well. It's a process where one student brings 30 of their friends rather than, a bunch of students you're trying to get them to bring one or so. And then this complete fill your school program has everything from sales processes to marketing processes. And again, real results, everything from some of the top MMA and BJJ schools to taekwondo, traditional Japanese styles, etc. So you'll get all of that material. What were you gonna say, Bob?
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, when you get into the live events, there's a lot of, yeah, I mean, they'll learn exactly how to do that. But, for example, the Ultimate Referral Machine, kind of in line with a pizza party. If you're out doing some of these live events, that could be one of the, the tags on your spin wheel. So you could end up getting a student and inviting them out. They can actually participate in either a birthday party or maybe a pizza party where they can bring an additional 15 of their friends out to your school. So, I mean, there's just a number of ways you can learn from all of this material to really, double, quadruple, your student base and your lead flow. I mean, what is our goal? A minimum of 100 leads.
There it goes again. What that is in the background.
Think of Sam, and you probably think of
It won't go away.
Alexa.
It won't go away. Here we go. It's Scotty Jackson got a really nice piece in the San Antonio Evening News and posted the video. So every time I open the group, it ends up auto playing his video, and that's what was running in the background. Before we went on our meeting yesterday, it was auto playing in the background. I'm going, what the heck is that? Is that a news site? Is that YouTube? How do I get rid of that? And finally, I figured it out and managed to AshCan it, but it did take me a while. Anyway, we'll call it a day here unless anybody has any questions. But again, that small school accelerator today, we're still doing a $97. If you register for $97, you'll get the first 30 days. We're going to double that literally as soon as the website goes up today or tomorrow. And then it's $497 a month. The actual tuition for that's going to be $997. But since we're just launching it, we're giving all of our frankly, people that we turned down in the past to work together, we're giving them an opportunity at a little more or less half price. So if you want to do that, go ahead and get started today. If you're over that 10,000 a month threshold, just call Bob 720-256-0208 and we'll get you on Master Smith's calendar and then mine. Give you some ideas for getting going here. What I will say is now through the end of September is a time when you can easily add 100 students at Master Smith. Going back to what you said, you know, there's no problem with a martial arts school that you can't fix with adding 100 new students with the right price point. And so it's an easy time to hit a big jump start with your acting game. Anyway, Bob, Matt Smith, anything to add before we call it a day?
No, sir. We have our other meeting coming up in 30 minutes. So
Yeah, I will see you in
Quit making excuses. And here's, you know, don't look this gift horse in the mouth. You know, do it. You know, just pick up the phone, pick up your, you know, get on your computer, call Bob, log in, you know, to our website there that he just put up. So just get, you know, just do it like Nike says.
Is that it? Okay. Talk to you soon.
all right. Bye-bye.